What's up, guys? My name is Itz D.
And I'm Luffy,
and
and
this
this
is
is
our
our
gaming
gaming
podcast.
podcast.
Hello, everyone.
What's up?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good.
All right, sounds good. All right, well, today's topic is going to be not on a current topic, but rather just taking a little blast to the past, in a sense. We're going to be solving the issue of, or I guess helping you figure out what retro game console you should collect for, because I've heard you've been having some issues making decisions on what single console you want to collect for. So today, I would like to help you in that area.
Well, I could certainly use it.
Yeah.
So, my initial idea was to go with a Game Boy Advance SP and kind of start building up a collection of those games, but I decided against that, and now I'm kind of stumped as to what I should do. Whether or not I should start collecting games for a console I already have, or a console that one of my current consoles is backwards compatible with, or if I should take a risk, buy an entirely new console, and start collecting for that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. Kind of torn between which of those I should do and which console.
Definitely some interesting dilemmas here. I think where we should start is just kind of figuring out, sort of, it's going to depend all on, for one, like a budget. You kind of need to figure out where your limits are with things you want to buy, and then also figuring out kind of what you want to play, retro game wise. Just kind of figuring out what kind of experience do I want to get. And of course, you're going to want to probably play different genres of video game. That's not necessarily what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is more what console will satisfy me most, what games do I want to play, and what console is best for this kind of thing. So you kind of have to ask yourself that question. Then also, you have to kind of ask yourself, because you're more of a Nintendo guy, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, as I am. So you want to ask yourself, do I want to start collecting games for a console that, one, I already own, in your case, or if you want to buy something new for yourself. And it's figuring out, in this case, you've got what, a Wii and a PlayStation 3?
Yes, as well as a 3DS.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Um, so let's see. First, I would want to probably address, what type of, have you kind of figured out whether you want like Nintendo, Xbox, PlayStation, or maybe even something else?
So, as interested as I am in trying something new, I'm not too big on the idea of venturing out with Xbox or PlayStation at this time, because I feel as if most of the games for those consoles are more first person shooters, things like Call of Duty, um, GTA, and those are just not my cup of tea, right? As I said before, I'm more of a Nintendo guy, so at the moment I'm tempted to go back to the either the NES or the SNES.
So you do want to try and venture for a Nintendo console.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. So that's definitely a good start because we've got definitely plenty of consoles. Well, maybe not plenty, but we've got some selections for sure. Uh, so definitely a good start. Let's see. Next, we need to figure out kind of what you're looking for. Do you want like, because it's kind of hard. Are you looking to play games for franchises you've already kind of played and are familiar with, or are you more interested in maybe venturing for new experiences?
So I would say a little bit of both because there are a couple of franchises I would like to go back and look at, how it all began with those franchises while also looking at some of the other ones that are available on that console and may or may not have kind of caught on and made a name for themselves. Kind of, for example, I've never played a Kirby game, so
Oh, that's not something I knew actually.
yeah. So there are several big contenders out there that I have never played, and now I'm kind of interested in doing that. So I would say, to answer your question directly, a little bit of both.
Okay. Hmm. Well, technically, each console, NES to let's see. Um, I'm trying to think of a console that would fit those needs. Uh, from your description, I'm looking towards probably. I would probably want to narrow it down to NES, SNES, or Nintendo 64. Maybe GameCube, but so probably one of those four we're looking at. Uh, so if you want, I can definitely because I've played. Actually, I haven't really played GameCube games. I will say that, but I have played some NES, SNES, and Nintendo 64 because I do actually have a few NES games, and then I also have some Nintendo 64 games. So I do have some experience with those, and then a little bit of SNES because I've played some of those games, and yeah. So I guess my next question to you is mostly what kind of experiences lengthwise are you looking for? Are you looking for a more uh, deep experience, or or are you maybe looking toward? I kind of want to get an idea because the older consoles, of course, due to their lack of capabilities, aren't going to be as complicated as games from today. I mean that's a given, but I'd like to hear what your preference is there.
So if the concept is a really good one, I don't mind simplicity. Um, that was one of my main issues with, I started going back and looking at, Game Boy releases, and a lot of them were simple, which, it's understandable because, it's one of the first portable consoles. And that didn't really speak with me too much. So it's more of I'm fine with simplicity to a certain extent, but I do prefer more immersive stuff.
All right. So then, I mean, I guess I should probably look online, but I feel like NES is probably not for you as much because although there are some definitely very good games on there, two issues I've seen is that one, some of the games can be on the more expensive side, and then two, uh, a lot of them are simple. And that's not to say they're bad, because of course they're not bad. But I do feel like, yeah, I mean, if you're going to collect for a console, that you want to get more out of the experiences. So I don't know if you agree or disagree here, but we're just kind of trying to figure out what you want. So I don't know. Do you agree, or do you think that NES may be for you?
I do agree. Um, Personally, I've been looking into SNES and GameCube.
Okay.
The SNES has some titles I'm interested in. Uh, I'm interested in potentially playing some Metroid, maybe. Uh, Street Fighter.
Yeah.
Uh,
Right. Okay.
some other titles like those. Um, the last time I checked, the SNES wouldn't break the bank either. I mean, it's not a terribly expensive console.
No, it's not that expensive. All right. So we're down to SNES, Nintendo 64, and then GameCube. So we've got three we're looking at. Um, let's get one other thing out of the way. What are we looking at budget wise? Like how, well, I guess I don't, you don't need to give specific numbers for obvious reasons, but basically, I guess, how much are you willing to shell out for the games, I guess, for a console?
It's going to depend on which of these consoles I choose to go for. Um,
Certainly.
yeah, it's also going to depend on what they're going for. I don't want to underpay, but I don't I you know I, I'm willing to pay a fair price. I have the means to purchase the console and the games. I'm not too terribly restricted in terms of that.
Okay.
So the price doesn't matter to me as much, but I'd still like it to be reasonable.
Okay. So one thing I want to bring up is a lot of the good GameCube games, and I haven't checked super recently, but one thing I've seen with the GameCube games is that the good ones go for quite a bit of money. I mean, you'll see like, let's go to price chart for this. I know price chart isn't necessarily just kind of as a base because like okay, so let's say I don't know. What's one title you'd like to play on the GameCube, for example? Just to as a kind of price thing.
Definitely Mario Kart Double Dash.
Okay. It's one I've definitely. All right, yeah. So this one in specific isn't terrible. And then one thing I should also ask is, are you looking to does collection matter to you here? Like, are you looking for complete inbox kind of stuff, or like, do you not really mind if a game is loose?
I don't really mind, but at the same time, I'd also complete in box. That's cool and all, but I know a lot of the as we go get farther back in terms of these releases, I realize that finding something that complete in box is going to get more and more expensive. So I don't really mind it, but if there isn't a huge gap between complete and loose, I would prefer to get the complete.
All right, fair enough. All right, so Mario Kart Double Dash seems to be going for 48 loose currently. which I
So
mean, not terrible, but like definitely not cheap either.
yeah,
Let's look at, and I'll just put in my own that Super Smash Bros. Melee, for example. All right, and it goes for about the same. So 48. Uh, and I know the Mario Party games, like the early ones, go for quite a lot of money. I know that much. So I think if I put in like Mario Party 4, okay, so this one goes for 45, but like yeah, so Mario Party 5 here goes for 50. So looks like GameCube games might have gone down a bit in price. So still a little bit of a factor, but not as big as one as it used to be. Because I used to see them go for about $10 more, not too terribly long ago. So
one thing I would like to say about the GameCube is that although some of the games may be a bit more pricey, uh, something to be taken into consideration is the fact that because I have a Wii, I wouldn't necessarily have to go and purchase a GameCube.
and that's
I could
fair.
go and purchase. I could purchase a GameCube controller,
Yeah,
and so that would cut costs as well. So I feel like that balances it out.
yeah, yeah, you do have a point there. Uh, let's see. So now I think here's what I say. I think we need to look at okay. So how about we look at I guess we can look at SNES and Nintendo 64 next. So I guess we can look at prices as well if we you want to, but actually no, I got an idea. All right. So you seem to be showing most interest in GameCube and Nintendo, not Nintendo, and the SNES. Would I be correct?
Yes,
All right. So would you rule out the Nintendo 64 as one you would want to collect for, or
not necessarily, but I'm not familiar with many titles for
that
the
is fair.
Nintendo 64, so I can't really speak on it, and that's why I haven't said much about it.
That is definitely fair. I feel like as an owner of the Nintendo 64, I find that it has some really good games. It does. I don't believe it even has. Let's see. So the Nintendo, I know the Nintendo 64 did not have a lot of games. But what games it did have, a lot of them were really good. Uh, of course, there were outliers like the infamous Superman 64. And yeah, it says here 393 games. So not even 400 games, but what games it did have, I believe to be really good. Some that I own personally, I have obviously the classic Super Mario 64. So if you're looking into it, maybe wanting to, well, I guess you don't really need to because you have that Mario Party 3D Stars game or whatever it's called. I kind of forgot what the name was. Oh, 3D All Stars. That's right. But then there's also ones like the original Super Smash Bros. As well as like there's the Mario Party games, and I've heard from a lot of people that the original ones were the best. Like those original three were like the best Mario Party games.
Okay.
And and then of course there's also Mario Kart 64, which I do believe is actually pretty good. It
Yeah,
does. Hmm?
I've
You
played
go
it
ahead.
once.
Okay. I
I,
personally believe it. I feel like its controls are pretty good, and of course I don't believe that you know It has the best controls, obviously, but I do believe I think it's a pretty good game. I like the track selection, and I do like. Uh, I think it controls pretty well. So definitely another good game for it. See. I mean, there are other titles as well. Like I know there's the James Bond game. Although you did say you're not really interested in first-person shooters, but there is Donkey Kong 64, which is I don't know if you've ever played like Donkey Kong Country before.
I played Country Returns,
Okay,
so
so I played it. I remember I had that game as well.
oh
Actually,
man,
yeah.
that was a good game.
Mm-hmm. Oh, certainly. It's basically a 3D version of the Country games.
Okay,
So
that's
if you can imagine
interesting.
that. But the only catch is you do need a expansion pack for your Nintendo 64 in order to play it. So
Yeah, I heard about that.
it is a pain to have to buy.
I
But
imagine so.
I would say there's some very quality. Oh, and I forgot to even mention. There's the Legend of Zelda games, and I hear a lot of people calling what's the Ocarina of Time like one of the best games ever made. Like it's
Okay,
that good title. Like you hear people calling Breath of the Wild the best game ever. Ocarina of Time is on that level for some people.
okay. I have a limited experience with The Legend of Zelda, so that might be interesting.
And then I think there's also Majora's Mask. I don't have as much experience with that one because, well, I don't have it. I don't have it either, but I've heard more about Ocarina of Time. And then there is a um, Kirby game on there as well. So if you wanted to get into the Kirby series, it wouldn't be a bad start. Haven't really played it myself much, but I do know that it's got an interesting gimmick where the abilities can be combined to create like one new ability. So it's definitely an interesting game. Would not be a bad start uh, to the Kirby series for a beginner, probably. Kind of like I think it's like a 2.5D game where like it's a 3D game that plays like a 2D one.
Okay.
So yeah. Um I don't know. With there is one thing I will actually bring up, and that is the final thing. And that is the controllers. They are a bit odd because they do have the three prongs. I know a lot of people do not like the controllers that the Nintendo 64 comes with because of that. But personally, I find them to be fine. I don't think they're that bad. Now there is a workaround with let's see. There is one controller that has two prongs instead of one, and it's got like a better joystick. And I do have one of those. They are on the more expensive side though. They're like 60, $70 for one.
Okay. So not
So they're
terrible, but it's not.
that's not I would normally not pay that much for a controller. But in this case, it's a really good controller for the Nintendo 64. So if you were to pick one up, you would want to get yourself one of those if you wanted like the best experience.
Yeah, controllers are a big thing for me because
Okay,
I
that's
have big hands, and so
I
smaller and more complicated controllers take a little bit for me to
well,
operate and kind of figure out.
uh, I mean the Nintendo 64 controllers are not small by any means. They are on the larger side. but I'm just trying to figure out what the one I'm talking about is. So I can't quite. Every time I think about it, I can't find it again. But yeah. Basically, you're gonna want to find a different one other than the. It's not size. It's more of a. It's a bit of a weird type of controller, and I think the main issue is definitely the joystick because it wasn't very good. The one I've got is a lot better. It's like this big giant joystick, and it's actually has like an actual cover on it. Doesn't have it's not just a piece of plastic because that's what the Nintendo 64 controller is like. So, I mean, yeah, cannot find out what it's called, but I will let you know if you decide. But yeah. Um, so I guess the next question is between the three, is there any I guess I should ask actually, not that, but like from what I've told you, would you still be consider the Nintendo 64 or are you going to rule it out with everything I've told you?
I'm honestly, I can't decide. Honestly, all three sound all three sound great. Honestly, so no, I definitely wouldn't rule it out.
But main reason I ask is because otherwise I mean, we're going to move on to the next console anyway, but so that just means we've still got three choices, so we're going to have to go through the other ones, see if there's any we can eliminate after that. So the SNES is on the more simpler side, but it's not as simple as the NES. It's definitely got some games that are more complicated. And then so just a few I can think of off the top of my head is like Super Mario World. You've also got like Earthbound. There's Kirby Superstar, which would be a fantastic first Kirby game if you wanted to get into the Kirby series. And then there's also, I believe they also put um, Kirby's Dream Land 3 on there. That's, I believe that's the more expensive game though. So, but then also there's what is it? There's the Super Metroid is on there, and then there's also Kirby, not uh, Zelda: A Link to the Past. So, I mean, there's multiple notable titles for the SNES, and then there's also Yoshi's Island, which actually debuted on the SNES. So, I don't know if that type of selection interests you or not. Uh, I can go ahead and look at prices though, since I'm actually not quite aware of how expensive the games are for the SNES. So it seems like Super Mario World is about $16.
That's
Actually,
not bad at all.
well, no, in that specific case, that game isn't expensive. I don't know if the others are or not. Which one? What would you be interested in looking at for the SNES? And I mostly ask this just because I want to see kind of what your interest gauge is.
Street Fighter 2.
Oh, Street Fighter 2, that's actually good.
Very interested in playing one of the Street Fighter games.
Let's see. Apologies, there's a lot of. Oh wow, this one's really cheap. It's only I don't know. I believe this is the right one. Uh, $12.
Wow.
I actually didn't know that. I've played it before. Uh, it's a really fun title. Uh, Definitely simple, but it is a fun time. I mean, I've even thought about getting a Street Fighter game for like my Switch because it is that good. I really did like Street Fighter 2. I don't know, anything else you want me to look up, or because if there's not, then I'll just probably end up looking at. Um,
Metro.
so let's go to Super Metroid then, because that's the I've never played it, but all right, okay. Super Metroid is on the more expensive uh end of games. It is a $62 game according to Price Chart.
Dang. Okay.
Now, I'm not going to really count Earthbound here just because, of course, it's one of the really expensive ones. It says here going for about 311, $312.
Dang.
You wouldn't be collecting stuff like that. It would mostly just be other stuff. But anyway, let's see.
Sounds like I'm sticking to Virtual Console for Earthbound.
Yeah, sure. Let's see. Is there anything else? Because I want to look up one more title. Just to kind of.
One more Super Mario Kart.
Oh, that's right. Super Mario Kart. All right, so let's see. Okay, a little bit more expensive. It's $30 loose according to Price Chart.
Okay, that's reasonable. I can live with that.
Just trying to kind of gauge. But from what it looks like, Super Nintendo games are not too expensive. And then just I looked up one more just because I wanted to get, you know, just a complete idea. So Yoshi's Island goes for about 34, $35. So from what I can tell, SNES games vary in terms of price, and I know that for other consoles that's obviously the case. It's more so about how much the good games go for, like the really big ones, the popular ones. Because I'm assuming that's probably what you would want to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, you've heard the prices for that. Uh, I guess the final one we were going to look into is GameCube. I know we looked at it a bit earlier, but what are some selections you're wanting to look for in that for that console?
So I am interested in playing Ocarina of Time. Um,
I think that's on
obviously.
the. I don't think that's on the GameCube.
Hmm.
There is a Zelda game called Wind Waker for GameCube.
Let's see. Which one was
Ocarina of Time, Nintendo 64.
okay, yeah, my bad, my bad. Yeah, you're right. Um so
So
obviously Double Dash and Super Smash Bros. Melee.
yeah, we went. I think we went with those. I think those are both about $48.
Yeah.
And then
Uh
I just looked up Wind Waker because I've also heard good things about Wind Waker. It says here it's about a $45 game.
okay.
Uh, would you be so? I don't know. Are you interested in Super Mario Sunshine?
Uh maybe I do own the 3D All Stars game for the Nintendo Switch, so I've played it a little bit. It's an interesting game, to say the least.
All right. It says here it goes for about 24 or 25 bucks.
Oh, okay, that's not bad at all. I'd definitely consider it then.
I know it's definitely considered one of the weaker 3D Mario games, but I've still heard good things about it. And I've played it a bit myself. I think it's decent. I think it's pretty good. Definitely one I should probably play more to kind of get a feel and see just, how good it is. All right then. In that case, think I don't know. Before we go into the decision time, the when you make your decision, do you want to hear did you want like some more, I guess, some more good games that were on the GameCube, just to kind of get an idea of what else is on there? Because there were some third-party games that were on there as well.
Sure.
All right. One thing I know is that there were Sonic games on the GameCube. Now, I do want to ask, have you played Sonic before? Really?
I played a little bit of one Sonic game on the 3DS, and that was about the extent of my my time playing Sonic.
See.
So I have, but not much. Not enough to say I would or wouldn't be interested in playing another Sonic title.
All right. From what I can tell, Sonic Mega Collection would not be a bad way to start. I'm trying to see exactly what titles are on there, but I believe it says there's like 7 Sonic games on there.
Okay, so fairly there's definitely some
Yeah, 7 classic Sonic games. So
there are definitely some options.
yeah, definitely. Wait, does it say 4? Yeah, no, it says 7. So I'm trying to figure out which ones there are on there because quite important. Oh, here we go. So it says, okay, wait. So it says here there's 14. It says there's default ones and then there's unlockable. So I see there's the first 3, Sonic and Knuckles. There's 3D Blast and a few others. So it seems like the original Sonic games are on there. So that I guess that wouldn't be a bad way to get into the series, going back to the classics if you wanted to. And on price chart, it says the game goes for about $11 loose.
That's not bad at all. There's one title on the GameCube, and unfortunately, the last time I checked, it was still incredibly rare. But I've always wanted to try playing Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness for the GameCube.
Boy.
And
Yes, I have heard of that one.
last time I checked, that was going for triple digits. So
Yeah, 137.95, so about 138.
and
Definitely.
that's up there, man.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm saying here back in the late 2000s, it was going for like $20.
Oh man.
I don't know if that's adjusted for inflation though, but still.
Yeah.
Does hurt seeing stuff like that. All right. Let's see. Just trying to think of anything else before we finally go into our final thing, but I think that's gonna be it for that. So now that you've kind of heard some like sampling for like games that are on each one, kind of heard some pros and cons. Are you ready to make your final decision?
All three sound like incredible options. Um, However, there's just something about the Super Nintendo. I don't know, man. I'm leaning I'm leaning towards the Super Nintendo because I think overall it has more titles that I'm interested in that are affordable. Um, I wouldn't have to worry too much about making sure I've got a certain type of controller. There's just the one controller, and from what I know, it is a solid controller,
Yeah,
and that it seems to have a good selection of games, some of which made their debut on that console, and so it's.
certainly. Yeah, a
I
lot
think
of. Mhm.
I think I'm gonna go with the Super Nintendo on this one.
All right, good to hear. Super Nintendo is a pretty good choice for true game collecting. So, yeah, I've thought about uh, collecting for it myself, but have personally leaned into other areas. So, yeah, I think that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. Let us know if maybe we helped you come up with any retro game collecting decisions yourself. Maybe even if we taught you anything, if you learned anything. So, yeah. You got any last thoughts, Luffy?
The one thing I will say before we close out is that although I decided upon the Super Nintendo, the other two consoles, they also have solid collections, and they're they wouldn't be bad choices either. So I do believe I will probably visit those two at a later point.
Right.
So
Well,
yeah,
here it was.
this
He is. Huh? Sorry.
this was a fun topic.
Yeah,
Clarified some stuff for me.
yeah. I thought it was pretty nice as well. Kind of helping a fellow uh, gamer find their pick. Because I remember back about, I would say, a year and a half ago or something like that. It's either a year and a half ago. No, I think it was a year and a half ago. I was having to choose between, well, not having to. I was trying to decide between GameCube and Nintendo 64. And I ended up choosing Nintendo 64 because I had I thought it had more interesting titles to visit and was more affordable with its titles. So, yeah. Well, that's going to do it for today's podcast, guys. Let us know what you think down in the comment section below. And yeah, we will see y'all in the next one.
Alrighty. See ya.